Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, Bede. What are we going to talk about today?
Okay, now we're going to talk about an incredibly interesting subject, I find, and what we're going to be talk about is what Swami Dayananda uses the word hurt.
Good.
Because
Okay.
you see, when it comes to his understanding of the condition of being a human being, one of the facts that he points out is that we're actually pervaded by hurt.
That's a pretty big statement.
Yes, because one of the problems is, you can read what he says, but you see, because the hurt that's actually centered on us is so painful and unbearable, what happens is we've developed various ways and defenses, if you like, and ways of seeing people and certain actions that defend us against ever really knowing that we are full of hurt.
Can you explain more about how is it all pervasive, and I'm not aware of it?
Okay, all right. What we're looking at is we're looking at the psychological basis of the human being. Now, in the West, various people have worked on this problem, but Swami Dayananda's take on it is unique. So what we're going to look at, what we'll look at first is how this hurt is built up in us, and then we'll look at how it expresses itself in daily life in all its wonderful glory. But when it expresses itself, it doesn't express itself as what it is, actually. It doesn't express itself as hurt as such. So we'll go into that. Okay?
Yep.
Now, the thing is that when you're looking at we're born into a family, we're born into a social situation, and what happens is that we interact with other people. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we interact with other people. And in the process of interacting with other people, we have the experience of being hurt at the hands of other people.
Being disappointed, or they've done something we didn't like.
Yeah, people attack us verbally or maybe physically, but we've been hurt. In other words, we've experienced the emotion of being hurt at the hands of other people. So there's a tremendous feeling of victimization.
Yeah.
And we're not at all, absolutely not at all, denying the experience of hurt. So what happens is as we come, as we go through life, we're accumulating hurtful experiences.
Yeah.
They're being accumulated, added to. And in our minds, they're all associated with each other. And so what happens is that this build-up of hurt is happening. And even though it's in the past, the problem is that it's there, existing in our minds, and it forms what you would call a dynamism. There's a tremendous pressure and direction to do something about that hurt, to avoid that hurt, to make sure that we never experience it, because it's a form of self-dissatisfaction which is extremely unpleasant.
And are we aware this is occurring in general?
No, we're not aware of that. But what happens is that we're normally aware of when someone says something that you don't like about you, something hurtful. What's the immediate reaction?
Probably rejection of what this.
Yes, but then it's anger, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what happens is that all of this hurt gets built up.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is that when you get into a present situation, right, with another person, and they say something hurtful, what happens is it becomes triggered. It comes alive again. You see, normally we're not aware of it. Here we are. If you had the thing, you're just feeling good one moment, and someone says something that's a bit hurtful, and suddenly you're suddenly full of hurt. We think that the hurt is related to this present situation, don't we? It's caused by the present situation.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Yes, it seems to be. But what that present situation is, it's only instrumental in revealing this pervasive hurt that's always there, sitting there active. Sitting there active. And then suddenly it comes out in the present moment. We think that the person in front of us has hurt us.
Yes.
But in actual fact, all that's happened is they have revealed this form of self-dissatisfaction. I mean, we hate being hurt. We're not satisfied with being hurt, are we? We don't like ourselves being hurt.
So are you saying that all these past experiences get associated in one sort of place in the mind or held in the mind somehow, and it's not really resolved or addressed because it was painful, and it's this latent there to be triggered by future experiences of hurt?
Yes, whenever you get into a similar situation, which is all the time, even people, human beings, even being in the presence of other human beings is going to trigger the anxiety, the fear of this hurt being triggered. That's why underneath it all, we're quite afraid of other people. Because what happens is that they have the possibility of hurting us. And so what happens is all of these experiences, it's not so much spatial in a place in your mind, but all these experiences are associated together. And so what happens is that in the present moment, someone says something, and suddenly we find ourselves being hurt. But normally speaking, we don't feel the hurt. Guess what we feel? Anger. Because you see, when we've been hurt, have you noticed that when someone attacks you, have you noticed the feeling of the strong feeling or the pressure to hit back?
I have at times, other times not.
No, but there's a strong tendency to retaliate in some way, to let the person know that you're not pleased with what they've done.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
You see, so we can retaliate in harsh ways by raising our voice or speaking unkindly, or we can retaliate in more socially acceptable ways by letting them know that we're displeased, so that they will feel something about the fact that they have hurt us.
But they won't necessarily know we're angry because we've mastered with something more socially acceptable.
Yeah, but most social life is fairly pretentious. It's like Dr. Jung says, what happens is that we have a thing called a persona. It's a mask, if you like. It's the face that we present to the world. And so when Swami Dayananda is talking about hurt, it's the fact of hurt is not necessarily seen very clearly, because we take the theatre of social life, which is, hi, how are you? As real. We don't take it as theatre. We take it as, oh yes, that person is like that. And when we're performing well too, we take ourselves, yes, I'm like this.
Yes.
But all of that really is a defense in one sense. It kind of anesthetizes the fact of this bubbling hurt. And then what happens is when something happens that we don't like, someone says something harsh or attacks us in some way, we then either get angry back, or we might even get depressed. Because what happens is that the anger gets turned on ourselves. Instead of dishing it out, some people never dish it back, so they get depressed.
They feel bad about themselves. They
feel bad about it, but yeah, so they're attacking themselves.
Yes.
You see, hatred is a very unacceptable emotion socially. But now this is the interesting thing. What you have is you have this tremendous hurt that's pervading the individual. And what happens is that the best possible mechanism, if you like, to relieve us of this hurt is anger, hurting others. Now, this may sound strange, but
it does.
The thing is that what happens is that through anger and through the expressions of anger, we defend ourselves against the hurt.
And how is it that when someone's hurting another, how is that working? How's that making them feel less hurt?
Okay, so what happens is this, is that, have you ever seen people backstab, talk badly about other people, attack people verbally behind their backs?
Yeah, yes, that seems to be fairly common.
It's ubiquitous, it's all over the place. Have you ever seen people get into arguments and have antagonistic interactions?
Yes, that seems to be a common interaction with some sorts of people. Yeah.
Yes, it's all over the place. The social gloss hides it. But conflict between human beings is usual.
So this is these are the more socially acceptable forms of anger that aren't necessarily seen as anger outright, but they actually are driven by anger. That's what we're
they're driven by hatred. Yeah. You see, what happens is we see that in Sydney, for example, I think the divorce rate's about 60%. There's a tremendous amount of antagonism and hatred by the time they get divorced. But it's behind closed doors. I remember a story of Freud walking with his daughter, Anna, through the streets of, where was that place in Austria? In Vienna. And he says, yes, he said, all of the houses look beautiful. But what happens behind the doors, we never see. So what happens is that this hurt that we have as human beings, what happens is that when hurt people want to hurt, because the actual dramatization of anger gives a release from the feeling of hurt. That's why it's so satisfying. Now, the thing is that the interesting thing about the psychology of the Gita, it's the psychology of desire. It says that every action that you do is satisfying a desire. So when you see people rubbishing people behind their backs, other people behind their backs, you are looking at the dramatization of hurt in the form of attacking, in the form of hatred being expressed, even if that hatred is being expressed very politely.
And even if it's done to the person's face in in mocking, which is also more socially acceptable, but it's actually, the mocking is coming from hatred. It's
hatred, yes. It's sanitized hatred. It's socially, and we can tell this, like when I look at my life, have I rubbished people behind their back? Yes. And attacked them behind their back? Absolutely. Now, when I was doing that, I would notice that there was a certain satisfaction out of it. It felt good to do that. In fact, and of course it feels good to do that because it relieves you of the hurt.
And the hurt you're talking about is a form of self-dissatisfaction.
Yeah, it's a tremendous. Well, we hate being hurt.
Mm.
We hate being ourselves as a hurt person. That's what Swami Dayananda means by self-dissatisfaction. He says there's a tremendous sense of self-dissatisfaction centered on us.
And so when we're hurting people, you know, we can feel a sense of satisfaction because we in our eyes we're having some sort of power or if you like an effective action, if you like, even if it's a damaging action for all parties concerned.
Yes, it's like when you see why this isn't seen as this. If I said to you, my son did something I didn't like, I asked him to tidy up the garage or whatever it was, right? Do you know what I mean? He didn't do it. He went off with his friends, and I got very upset with him. Do you know what I mean? I don't like getting angry with him. I got angry with him. You know what I mean? I hope you know. I just find it so annoying when he does that, right?
Yeah.
Do I notice the fact that I've manifested and dramatized hatred? Of course not. Because I've sanitized it. But now let me tell you the truth, what happened. My son did something I didn't like. Suddenly, I was full of the desire to attack him in a certain way. I attacked him by talking to him harshly. Then I felt a bit better after I did that. So in other words, I got a tremendous satisfaction out of dramatizing hatred, hurt, out of dramatizing anger. Now, does that sound very socially acceptable?
It's masked the full impact of it's not showing that you're hurt or angry with him, or you're just showing you're displeased, so it's sort of masked somewhat.
Yes, I'm making it socially acceptable, aren't I?
Yes.
I'm making it so that I do not undergo the criticism of others, because I hate the criticism of others.
Yeah.
And I don't like my own self-criticism. But the fact, you see, Swami Dayananda was very, very important, this whole thing of non-hurt, non-injury. And the reason why it's so important as a virtue is that we have an incline, because we're hurt, human beings have a tremendous pressure to hurt others. And this pressure or this desire to hurt others is universally denied. Because you see, what happens is that we don't like, you see, being truthful, you see, what happens is we have a nice idea of ourselves, you see. And again, what we have an idea of ourselves. Can you just step back a bit from the screen so I can see your face, Kevin? Yeah. We have a nice idea about ourselves because this also protects us against a sense of self-dissatisfaction. We don't want to be seen as a bad person, do we?
No.
So when I attack my son by talking to him harshly and satisfying my desire to hurt, which relieves me of the feeling of hurt in myself, then I don't see it, do I?
No.
And you see, the thing with Vedanta is that we have to understand the disease before we'll really want the cure. And we're going to be talking about, there's more than hurt, but today we're talking about hurt. Hurt expresses itself. Normally, it doesn't show its face as hurt.
Because we from what you're describing, we're before we even deliver the hurt in the form of criticism or a harsh tone.
No, criticism actually is not. Criticism is another problem. We'll go into that later. But I'm talking about attacking behaviour.
But we've justified it, haven't we?
Yes.
I did something we didn't like. He should have cleaned the garage. He did. I need to tell him that. Yeah,
and he made me angry. He did it.
Yes.
He created in me these feelings.
Yeah.
And but the fact of the matter was, I acted in an injurious way. I violated. You know, you see, the thing is that it's extremely easy. It's an extremely difficult thing to live a life where you don't injure others. And one of the reasons why it's so difficult is we're so full of hurt, which then makes us so full of hatred and resentment. And then when we dramatize that hatred and resentment, we hurt others. And we may not. And you know, I mean, I used to, you know, I look at my life. You know, I used to look at my life, and I go, why did I lose my temper, or why did I speak so harshly? And I'd sometimes see that when I was talking behind people's backs, for example, do you know what I mean? I'd see that I was sort of enjoying it, and then that made me uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? And I thought I couldn't understand that. And then I studied psychodynamic theory, but that didn't resolve anything. It didn't matter how much theory you know about this. The fact is, someone has done something you don't like, and you're filled with this desire to retaliate.
And no one respects an angry person, do they? Like in the world, an angry person is not respected.
Well, it's socially unacceptable. So because it's socially unacceptable, the hatred has to come out in socially acceptable ways.
Because an angry person is seen as someone who's lost the plot.
Yes. But a person who artfully criticizes people behind their backs, who talks bad about others, when you're seeing that, what you're seeing is the manifestation of hatred in a socially acceptable form. You're seeing the hurt being dramatized. Because when they dramatize hurt, they are actually, what they're doing is they're trying to deal with their hurt. So when they're dramatizing their anger or their character assassination or talking bad about others, or all of these forms of attacking, all the forms of attacking you see, even the ones that are done nicely, you are looking at the person dramatizing hurt in the form of attacking behavior, and the purpose of that attacking behavior is to relieve them of the hurt. So what I'm saying here is that as human beings, we have a pressure to hurt others because of the hurt.
Just coming back to the example of your son in the garage, you know, he didn't do something you've asked. What you asked was quite reasonable. He sort of uses the garage as well, and he didn't do it. Is it appropriate to you know, discuss that with him?
Yeah, it's absolutely appropriate to discuss it with him. There are two issues here. There's the fact that he may need to learn to be responsible, and he needs to do what he needs to do.
Yeah.
But you see, I've used that situation to dramatize my hatred in order for me to in one sense deal with my hurt. Am I aware of this? No. But you see,
you justified it with the nice underlying story, if you like, which is there that, you know, your son should be responsible and do what he needs to do.
It's not an underlying story. It's part of the social theatre. You know what I mean? I was righteously indignant. Anyone would be annoyed and angry about that. You see, the thing is that when it comes to anger, justify in Latin is a very interesting word. Just means just, and fi means to make. You make it just. You see, so we have this tremendous, because we need to be seen in a good light in our own eyes and the eyes of other people. We do not want to acknowledge first of all, we don't want to acknowledge the fact that we have a desire that can become active in us to hurt other people. But if there's anyone that I know who's even listening to this video, have you, just ask yourself, do you sometimes have a strong desire to say something that's critical, you know, that will be harmful about another person? Do you ever talk behind people's backs after they've happened, you know, whatever, to someone?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All of this sort of thing. But the thing is that what's important is this. What's important in terms of Vedanta is that as human beings, we suffer from a profound sense of self-dissatisfaction. And one of the basic forms of self-dissatisfaction that forms a dynamism, in other words, a force that motivates so many acts. And the act of one human being attacking another, verbally, physically, through character assassination, all of this. Have you seen that in human life, how often do we see that human beings attack each other, either behind their back or openly?
I think it's quite frequent, Bede, unfortunately.
Yes, it's ubiquitous. And the magnificent understanding that Swami Dayananda has is that behind all of that is this dynamism of hurt. And you see, because we have a sense of conscience, we can at least, we may not dramatize it. We might commit. Okay, I will not harm other people by my word or my act, even if I feel like it unnecessarily. Now, first of all, that is an extremely hard thing to do. We think it's not. Oh, I'm a nice person. Well, yeah. The fact of the matter is it's an extremely difficult thing to do. And secondly, because you see, because of the pressure of this hurt. So we can do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But one of the problems, and you see, because one of the problems with manifestations of hatred is that because it's so punished, what people do is they pretend that they don't have hatred. To avoid that, imagine a child, he pretends he's not angry because he doesn't want to get hated by his parents, and then the person becomes depressed.
Yes.
But the thing is, there's no release.
Because that just reminds me of if someone's been hurt, and if they hurt back, if they're hurting back to someone has more power than like a parent or a boss,
yes,
they're going to get in more trouble, aren't they?
Yes. Yes. You see it with children. With children, is I hate you. I don't want. You're not my friend. They're quite open about their hatred with each other, but not with their parents. They'll be in severe trouble. But the thing is with this is that what I want to say is that when I knew that I knew that sometimes I could become enraged or be angry or retaliative and all this stuff, but the pressure to do that, I was helpless before it. I knew I was helpless before it. And the thing is this. Now this is the point. See, when Swami Dayananda says that we're helpless, the actual experience of helpless, when it comes to our psychology, the way we are, our psychological reactions, we are totally helpless. We're not totally helpless in terms of action, what we do, but in terms of our condition, we are completely helpless. We may try to do various things to fix up our hostility. Like we might try to be nice. You mean some people become extremely sweet and nice to try and deal with their hostility. And have you met these people who are just so nice that it's sickening? But that type of thing. When I was in the Catholic Church, some of the nicest, holiest people were the most vicious people you could ever imagine. So that again, you see, self-honesty is not an easy thing. But in Vedanta, we have to come as we are. You do mean like we come to Vedanta as we are. And the thing is that what's wonderful is this, and what's unique about Swami Dayananda, he fully understood that we were helpless before ourselves. I would sometimes in my life, I just feel so helpless before myself. Like, what can I do? In fact, there's nothing I can do about this. You see, this is the problem. There's nothing you can do about hurt. There has to be a resolution, a release. That's true. If there's no release from hurt, we're in terrible trouble. Now, there is a release, which we'll be talking about as we go on. But all I'm saying is that this hurt that's always abiding, it's always there, pervades us. It affects everything. Even when you approach another human being, they have a possibility of hurting you. So we're gun shy. Do you understand what I mean?
An example could be when you're looking at, I could find myself relaxed and pleased looking at some landscape or scenery, but upon another person coming into that circumstance, I can suddenly, something in me can actually, I've noticed at times, something triggering in me to be my relaxed person, the relaxed person that I thought I was, suddenly isn't so relaxed.
Quite. You see, that's the whole point. You see, what happens is that human beings trigger each other constantly. And then, of course, when you're triggered and you're a little bit nervous or whatever, you've got to pretend that you're not nervous because we've got to be cool. Do you know what I mean? Because we really, we're really, in one sense, obsessed about looking good in our own eyes and the eyes of other people. And so we can't, and then if we lose it, then we go into self-hatred. Oh, why did I lose it? Oh, I'm just such a loser. I just can't believe I could do that. So then we berate ourselves in an effort to deal with this fact that we've lost it.
It's like you're saying we're living a life of maintaining a public image, so that we look good in our own eyes and the eyes of other people, which is quite different from being ourselves, finding out what it means to be ourselves.
Yes, I'll be going into that. But one of the problems with this is that, so there's this dynamism, isn't there? This force, this pressure to be a good look in our own eyes and the eyes of other people.
What do you mean by the word dynamism?
It has force. It's a pressure. It's the motivating hurt forms a dynamism out of which comes hatred. And it's like a force that has direction and force. Have you ever lost your temper?
Yes, I have.
And when you do, it's like there's a tremendous force there to act and say and do certain things, isn't there? And you're helpless before it, aren't you?
Yeah. See,
so hurt is a dynamism. It's one of the dynamisms that lies behind what people are doing. And what I wanted to point out to you is that even though we may not know what it is to feel hurt because we don't like that, we definitely can see the expressions of hurt in the form of attacking behavior, feeling annoyed. I mean, I'm driving down the road and I go, what, that bloody idiot, what's he doing? Do you know what I mean? And so here I am. I think that this idiot has made me angry. No. What's happened is I'm getting a bit of a kick. I'm relieving myself of hurt. Am I conscious of that? I never used to be conscious of that. But I also blame the environment when I'm upset. Yes, of course he made me angry. He made me annoyed.
You're saying the person didn't make you angry. He was only incidental in triggering hurt that's already there.
Yes, what I'm saying is the psychological setup is this. We experience other people hurting us or annoying us or making us angry. So we blame them. And when we blame them, we feel completely justified in hurting them. And like either by talking harshly. Do you know what I mean? Have you ever talked harshly to your children?
Yes.
Yes. That is a dramatization of hatred, which is a dramatization of hurt. Because when you talk harshly, you're hurting them. You're attacking them. This is why this ahimsa is so important. If human beings were just innately kind and treated, we wouldn't value ahimsa, this non-injury virtue so important, we wouldn't value it, would we? See, the wonderful thing about Swami Dayananda, you see, what he says is that for us human beings, enmity, the enmity that we have and the expressions of that enmity towards other human beings, Swami Dayananda makes it very clear. In order to understand Vedanta, we have to be relatively free of enmity. It's such an important issue. So he said that unless we can accommodate people totally, accommodate means make room for them, just accept them as they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We will never be able to understand Vedanta. Now, when I first read that, I thought, I'm in trouble. I'm in serious trouble, because I knew I could see the manifestations of enmity. I could see that I could suddenly get annoyed. Do you know what I mean? That I could actually feel intense hatred sometimes for people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like especially if they did certain things that are very unjust. Hatred. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes I'd be looking at something that happened in the news. Do you know what I mean? About American foreign policy, for example. And I go, right? We're not talking about that foreign policy may be wrong. That's one issue. But the fact that the anger and the hatred is another matter. Do you see what I mean? You see, we're like a cocked gun. You see, Swami Dayananda says that the person who's angry was angry before they got angry. It's just a revelation. But what I wanted to point out to you is that normally when we're being angry and when we're attacking others, we're not feeling the hurt. Attacking others actually relieves us of the experience of hurt.
So this is where I have heard before many times, and that they say hurt people hurt.
Yes. Yeah, hurt people hurt. And what I wanted to make clear is that it's extremely important. What Swami Dayananda's brilliance is that you can try and chop the anger off, and you can try and deal with the various. I'm going to try and be nice, and I'm going to do all of this sort of stuff to resolve my hatred and anger and antagonism. That's not going to happen. What Swami Dayananda says, that if right here, right now, as I am, if I am released from the hurt, guess what happens to all of the manifestations of enmity?
They stop being automatically...
They're made redundant. You see,
that mechanism isn't required to relieve the hurt, because the hurt's being relieved.
Yes. Because Swami Dayananda never considered anger or hurt the problem. He considers you being hurt is the problem. This is where he's different from Western psychologists. You see, Western psychologists consider that people have psychological problems.
Yeah.
Called anger, whatever, anxiety, sadness, depression, whatever.
Yeah.
And because it's an object that I'm suffering from, they had to, okay, the problem is centered on the anger. We have to have now anger management. But Swami Dayananda says that if right here, right now, as I am, if there could be a shift right here, right now, as I am, in such a way that the pain, the hurt isn't active in me, the whole drama collapses. It disappears.
Well, that would be very good. So
we're going to be talking about that later. But what I'm talking about now is that it's an extremely important thing to realize that one of the fundamental things, whenever you're approaching another human being, understand one thing: the people you're approaching are hurt. And because they're hurt, they're also hateful. They're not necessarily dramatizing the hatefulness. There are people who are quite ethical in the sense that they curb their behavior so they don't harm others. Very few, by the way. And we can know this by everyday life. Just ask yourself, of the people you know, do they go on about other people? Do they, you know, particularly if you see, you know, just bear in mind is that when you see someone talking bad about another person behind the person's back, and particularly if you know the person, you are looking at hatred.
What happens? What about when they're doing it in front of the person?
Same thing. You see, according to the Gita psychology, and I love the Gita psychology as unfolded by Swami Dayananda, because I don't know the Gita as a Western scholar of Hinduism or whatever. All I know is the psychology of the Gita as unfolded by Swami Dayananda. That's my interest.
Yeah.
But that when a human being acts, they're always satisfying desires. Always. So when someone is rubbishing someone behind their back, they're either, first of all, would you think that they're motivated by dharma, by wanting to bring value into the world and contribute something?
No.
No. You think that? No. So therefore, they're getting the satisfaction of feeling more secure, and the satisfaction they're getting pleasure. That's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they say. So what you see, we have to be very clear on this sort of stuff. Human beings are hurt. Because they are hurt, they have a desire to hurt back. And Freud called this displacement. You're angry. You get angry at the boss, and then you go home and you kick the cat.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is that we've all got a past experiences of hurt, and in the present moment, we target people. And some people are a lot more uncontrolled than others. Have you ever seen people who you just know that they're waiting to have a go? They're just waiting for something to happen so they can really go for it.
Yes.
And you see, and we wonder, why did they get so angry? Because they are enjoying it, in the sense that it is relieving them of this tremendous burden of hurt.
How does it relieve them of the burden of hurt? How's that happen?
Because when you're angry at others, you don't feel hurt. You don't feel hurt. You know, like if you ever want, when someone says something, like, and you retaliate. Have you ever retaliated, Kevin?
Yes.
Did it feel better when you were retaliating? Of course it did. That's why you did it. We're driven to retaliate. It's a natural, normal thing. Now, the thing I want to point out is that everything that you try and do or think about, all the books that you're reading to try and fix this fundamental problem centered on ourselves called hurt, won't work. It doesn't matter how much you read about it. I've read lots about this sort of stuff. It doesn't matter how much you read about it. It doesn't matter what you try. Unless there is a fundamental shift right here, right now, as I am, because the hurt is centered on me. So in other words, unless there's a fundamental shift in me, there is no release at all from hurt. But we also have to be very practically minded. We have to understand that we have to, you see, in Vedanta, what's important is as far as Swami Dayananda goes, the only thing that relieves all of our problems is contact with reality. That is the only thing, being alive to what is. And the thing is that, you see, the whole purpose of Vedanta is a means in which you can become alive to what is. It's an instrument. See, even Swami Dayananda's words, we can see our life in the light of his words. That's the point. I never studied Vedanta as such. I studied my life in the light of Vedanta. That's the whole purpose of Vedanta. And so what we're looking at here is that it's extremely important to understand, yes, I have the disease that Vedanta addresses. And this disease is centered on me. I am hurt. When I went to India to study under Dayananda, I knew that I was a hurt-ridden being. You know what I mean? I wasn't cool or calm or whatever. I knew basically, yes, this is me. When he talked about hurt, yep, that's me. When he talked about helplessness, I thought, yep, that's really me. Because everything that I had tried in order to find a release from my unhappiness never seemed to work. And of course, that's the point. You can't, no matter what you try in terms of action to resolve this fundamental problem, it's not going to resolve. The only thing that's going to resolve it is knowledge, which we'll be going into. But all I wanted to go in today was the fact that human beings are hurt. They are pervaded by hurt. Every little piece of them is full of hurt. This is normally covered over, but they build their life in a way that defends themselves against from ever experiencing.
Can I ask you a question? You said a bit earlier about Western psychology regard anger as something people have, rather than
something they're being.
They're being.
Yes.
In that you're distinguished between, I can have an angry thought, and it's an angry thought. I can, and at that point, I can still have a choice of what I do with that anger.
Oh, yeah. Okay, very good point.
And the other, alternatively, when I'm being angry, and my I sense or is being the anger, confused in the thought.
Not your I senses. You are being angry.
Me. I am being angry. My whole way of seeing conforms to that anger.
Now, the anger conforms to your way of seeing, actually, but I don't want to go into that quite, but
yep.
It's a good point. What happens is that we have no control over our thoughts and feelings. We've got as much control over that as the weather. Does that make sense? And as was pointed out to me by my teacher, Atmaprakashananda, early on, is that my emotional reactions and thoughts and feelings are just simply a part of this huge intelligent order that's functioning. Perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. So the weather works the way it works. It comes and goes, fine, whatever. The same with the thoughts, right? So the thing is that you can have a reaction. So a person can do what a person can do, something you don't like. You can have a reaction, I don't like that. You know what I mean? And even a reaction of annoyance, that's completely out of your control.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between having a reaction, which is out of your hands, and dramatizing that reaction. If you become the reaction, this is the problem. When you become the reaction, you're just completely, you're mindlessly dramatizing hurt. You're mindlessly dramatizing hurt in the form of injurious behavior. When you attack other people in any way, as far as Vedanta is concerned, you harm yourself even more, actually.
Because you're not going to get a helpful response from the person you're hurting, are you?
Well, you're not interested in a helpful response. You're just interested in feeling better about yourself by hurting them.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. It's nothing to do with you're not when you're completely full of anger. Dharma is the last thing that you're interested in. You're not interested in, well, let me see you see. The whole purpose of karma yoga is to first of all have a mind that's clear, that can see. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And
then to be able to be steady, not to be able to live a life in the right way and not get distracted. You know what I mean? A clear and steady mind, so that we might have moments of clarity, but we want to be able to remain clear and steady in the face of whatever's happening. This is why karma yoga is such an important practice, because karma yoga, it brings about a transformation of the quality of our minds and the way we live. But we'll be going into that a little later. But the important point here is this, is that we as human beings are hurt, and we're completely helpless before this hurt. You can read as many books as you like. You can do as many relaxation exercises as you can. You can shift relationships if you can. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can do all sorts of things to deal with this hurt. None of them are going to work. That's the point. I hate to say this. And you see, because the truth of the matter is we are actually helpless before ourselves. Helpless. Now, this may sound rather negative, but in actual fact, as we'll see, to really acknowledge the fact that we're helpless before what we are like, that's when we become available to the action of Vedanta and the teaching of Swami Dayananda.
Because until you recognize that, you'll keep on using the tools, the status quo, the normal tools of hurting others to relieve your hurt. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. What happens is we might notice that we get angry and whatever, and then we'll try to do something about it. We might try to become a nice person and all that stuff, have improve our image of ourselves or whatever it is that we want to do. The problem is there's no release. Every action we take will not release us from this hurt. The release of hurt requires another approach.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So it's quite good in one sense to understand everything I've tried, all my thinking about and all my reading about, all my efforts, my trying to meditate to get rid of it, all of this sort of stuff, right, is not going to work. We're helpless before it. Now, this is, of course, before Vedanta, I was extremely helpless because I didn't know the direction in which the resolution was. Here I was a hurt human being. That was obvious to me. But not so much hurt really, but angry and resentful would be more like it. So all we're saying is that the importance of the teaching of Swami Dayananda's understanding of this is the fact that it is possible to resolve the hurt without action as such.
That's good.
And without action. So without thinking and without action and without will. And that's what's important, and that's what we'll be going into. But what I wanted just to make clear was when you look at human life and you look at the amount of attacking that goes on between people, the amount of fighting that goes on, whether it's nice and polite type fighting, whether it's character assassination behind people's backs, or what you're looking at, I want you to be able to see it in the light of the teaching. His teaching is that whenever you see another human being attacking another human being in any way whatsoever, either nice and socially politely or antagonistically or whatever, what you're looking at is you're looking at hurt being dramatized. Okay, and that the basis of that desire to attack and to hurt another person is the fact that I, centered on me, I'm full of hurt. Okay?
Very good. I'm looking forward to the solution, Bede.
Well, we're not going to go into the solution yet, because next topic we're going to be dealing is with guilt, because that has a whole other arrangement. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.